The world knows Michael Jackson as a legend. The music, the dance, the voice. He was called the king of pop. But almost no one understands what fame actually did to him. This is not about performances. This is not about awards. This is about what happened after the lights went off. Michael Jackson did not grow up famous. He grew up controlled. From a very young age, his life followed strict rules. Practice, perform, repeat. Childhood was not something he experienced. It was something he missed. While other children went to school, Michael was on stage. While others played outside, he rehearsed. Mistakes were not tolerated. Fear was constant. Fame arrived early, too early, before his personality had time to form, before he understood who he was without applause. The world loved him. But love at that scale is not normal. It is overwhelming. As he grew older, Michael became something rare. Not just famous, but unreachable. Every movement was watched. Every decision judged. Privacy disappeared completely. Here is something most people do not realize. Michael Jackson lived under pressure every single day of his adult life. Not career pressure, identity pressure. He could not walk freely. He could not sit in public. He could not trust easily. Every interaction had an agenda. As fame increased, isolation increased with it. Michael started creating his own world. A place where he felt safe. A place where control belonged to him. This was not escapism. It was survival. Neverland was not just a home. It was a boundary, a way to separate the world from himself. But the public misunderstood this completely. They saw wealth. They saw eccentricity. They did not see loneliness. Michael suffered from physical pain, serious pain, medical conditions that required treatment. But treatment slowly became dependence. Doctors did not treat a patient. They treated a global asset. Every concert depended on his body. Every contract depended on his health. Rest was not an option. As the years passed, Michael's body weakened. But expectations never did. He was expected to perform like before, to move like before, to be perfect. Perfection became a prison. The media played a major role. They built him up, then slowly dismantled him. Stories were exaggerated. Moments were distorted. Silence was interpreted as guilt. Michael did not defend himself well publicly, not because he was hiding, but because confrontation was not his nature. That silence became expensive. The more he withdrew, the louder the world spoke for him, and most of what it said was wrong. Behind closed doors, Michael struggled. Emotionally, physically, mentally. He trusted very few people, and those around him often benefited from that trust. Here is a difficult truth. Michael Jackson was surrounded by people who depended on him being functional, not healthy. That difference matters. By the time he reached his final years, Michael was exhausted. Not from music, from being watched. He was still planning, still dreaming, still believing he could return. But his body was running out of time. The world expected a comeback. Michael needed rest. Those two things collided. And what happened next was not sudden. It was built slowly, day by day, decision by decision. HTML/HTML. HTML/HTML. As Michael Jackson entered his later years, something quietly changed. The pressure did not disappear. It shifted hands. In the beginning, Michael controlled his work, his music, his image, his decisions. But over time, that control slowly moved away from him. People began making decisions for him, not because he asked, but because he was tired. Michael was physically exhausted. Years of performing had damaged his body. His joints hurt. His back hurt. His sleep disappeared. Sleep became the biggest problem, not restlessness, complete insomnia. Imagine not sleeping for days, then weeks, then months. Sleep deprivation changes the brain. It weakens judgment. It increases anxiety. It creates dependence. Michael searched for relief, not escape, relief. Doctors entered his life not as healers, but as solutions. Here is something most people do not understand. Michael Jackson did not live like a normal patient. Doctors did not give advice. They followed demands. Why? Because Michael was not just a person. He was a global business. Tours depended on him. Contracts depended on him. Hundreds of jobs depended on him. When he said he needed sleep, the goal was not recovery. The goal was functionality. Strong medication became routine. What should have been temporary became normal. Michael trusted doctors because he needed to. He had no space to experiment, no margin for weakness. As the comeback plans began, pressure increased again. Shows were scheduled. Deadlines were fixed. There was no room to delay. Michael's body was not ready, but expectations were. Rehearsals were intense. Long hours, high demand, little recovery. Those around him noticed. He was thinner, quieter, more fragile, but stopping was not considered. This is a difficult truth. Michael Jackson was treated like a resource, not a patient. Medical care crossed a line. Professional distance disappeared. Boundaries blurred. Medication was no longer about healing. It was about keeping him going. Michael was not informed fully, not about risks, not about consequences. When someone is desperate for rest, they do not question the method. They trust the person offering relief. Michael wanted to sleep. That was all. Meanwhile, the public saw none of this. They saw announcements, posters, rehearsal clips. Behind closed doors, Michael was struggling to stand. His weight dropped dangerously. His energy vanished quickly. His anxiety increased daily. Yet the machine moved forward, because stopping would cost money. This is where responsibility becomes unclear. Not one person, not one decision, but a system that never slowed down. Michael's inner circle grew smaller. Voices of caution were ignored. Urgency dominated every conversation. He became isolated again. But this time, even isolation was controlled. The night before everything ended was not dramatic. It was quiet, routine, medication, attempted sleep, trust, and then silence. What followed shocked the world, but what led there was hidden in plain sight. HTML/HTML. HTML/HTML. In the final weeks of Michael Jackson's life, everything moved faster. Not because he was ready, but because the schedule was. Rehearsals intensified. Long nights, bright lights, high expectations. Michael tried to keep up, not out of greed, out of responsibility. He knew thousands of people depended on the shows. He knew expectations were massive, but his body was sending clear warnings. Weakness, dizziness, exhaustion. Those warnings were acknowledged, then ignored. The problem was no longer denial. It was momentum. Once something becomes too large, stopping it becomes difficult. Michael continued rehearsing even when rest was necessary. Sleep remained almost impossible. Night after night, his mind stayed awake. Here is an important detail. Michael was not asking to be unconscious. He was asking for normal sleep. Sleep is basic, but for him, it had become unreachable. Medical decisions continued. Some were meant to help, some crossed lines. The environment around Michael was not calm. It was urgent. Deadlines were approaching. Venues were prepared. Promotions were running. There was no pause button. Michael's appearance worried some people. He looked fragile, thin, quiet, but rehearsals looked impressive. That created confusion. From the outside, everything seemed under control. Inside the room, it was not. The final night was not dramatic. There was no argument, no chaos. Michael wanted to sleep, as he had wanted for weeks. He trusted the person responsible for his care. That trust was fatal. The medication used that night was not meant for home use. It was powerful. The intention may have been rest. The result was irreversible. When Michael did not wake up, panic followed. Confusion, delay. Emergency services arrived, but time had already passed. Efforts were made, but the outcome could not be changed. When the news broke, the world froze. Fans gathered everywhere. Outside hospitals, outside homes, outside studios. Disbelief spread faster than understanding. How could someone so famous die so quietly? Questions followed immediately. About responsibility, about decisions, about care. Investigations began. Facts were examined. The conclusion was not simple. It never is. Michael Jackson did not die because of one moment. He died because of accumulation. Years of pressure, years of control, years of ignoring limits. The final decision was critical, but it was not isolated. Legal accountability followed. One person faced consequences, but many questions remained unanswered. The public wanted clarity, someone to blame, but the truth was uncomfortable. This was not a single villain story. It was a system that never slowed down. The world mourned. Music played everywhere. Videos resurfaced. Memories returned. But mourning often avoids responsibility. Michael became frozen in time, a legend, an icon, but the human story risked being forgotten again. HTML/HTML. HTML/HTML. When Michael Jackson died, the world stopped for a moment. Music channels went silent. Radio stations changed playlists. Crowds gathered without planning. Grief was instant, global, uncontrolled. But grief is easier than reflection. Very quickly, the world shifted from shock to memory. Michael Jackson became frozen in his most powerful form. Performing, smiling, dancing. That version was safe. That version asked no questions. But behind that image was a story still unfinished. After his death, everything accelerated again. Music sales exploded. Documentaries appeared. Opinions hardened. Michael became more profitable in death than he had been in years. This uncomfortable fact was rarely discussed. Legal processes followed. Medical responsibility was examined. One individual was found accountable, but the larger system remained untouched. No industry-wide reform. No serious conversation about pressure. The narrative moved on. Michael Jackson became a symbol, but symbols do not suffer. People do. Fans continued defending him. Critics continued questioning him. The world stayed divided. What often gets lost is something simple. Michael Jackson was never allowed to be ordinary. From childhood, he was exceptional, gifted, controlled. He was praised for perfection and punished for weakness. That combination is dangerous. When someone cannot fail publicly, they fail privately. Michael never escaped the role assigned to him. Even when he wanted to rest, he had to perform stability. After his death, the conversation focused on outcomes, not causes, but the causes matter. Extreme fame distorts reality. It isolates. It removes honest feedback. It replaces care with convenience. Michael Jackson lived inside that distortion for decades. By the time help was truly needed, it came in the wrong form. The most painful truth is this: Michael did not lose relevance. He lost protection. Too many people depended on him functioning. Too few depended on him surviving. That imbalance ended everything. Today, his music continues. His influence remains. His impact is unquestioned. But his story should not be simplified. It is not just about talent. It is about cost. If someone so powerful, so wealthy, so loved could be pushed beyond his limits, then fame is not safety. It is exposure. Michael Jackson showed the world what brilliance looks like. His life shows the price of brilliance without boundaries. This is not a warning against success. It is a warning against silence. Because when systems stop listening, collapse looks sudden. But it is never sudden. Michael Jackson did not disappear overnight. He faded under pressure, and the world noticed only when the music stopped. This was not the story of a pop star. It was the story of what happens when a human being is treated like an expectation. HTML/HTML. HTML/HTML.